Wife who forced me into an open marriage can't believe I divorced her after she got pregnant. I was married for 2 years at the time, and my wife was absolutely hooked on TikTok. She'd send me at least 20 videos a day, usually funny clips or interesting challenges. We were both in our early 20s and enjoyed sharing that kind of content with each other. Eventually, though, she started sending me videos and podcasts that focused on open marriages. They talked about how some couples thrive when they're not tied down to one partner and how they find it liberating. We had several long talks where she explained her point of view and how she thought it could be a great way for us to explore before we settled down with kids and got too old to experiment. I wasn't totally convinced at first, but she kept gently nudging me toward the idea over the next few months. She'd bring it up casually after watching a podcast episode or share another video with me that she thought made good points about being young and having fun. Finally, after a lot of persuasion, I agreed to give it a shot. However, I wanted to make sure we set some clear boundaries, so we had a serious conversation about the rules. First, we decided that any intimacy with others must be protected, no exceptions. We didn't want to risk our health or anything else. Second, we agreed that nothing would happen in our house and there would be no overnight stays with anyone else. Our home was supposed to remain a safe space just for us. Lastly, if either of us slept with someone else, we wouldn't share the details, and we'd take a 30-day break from touching each other. We also promised to see a doctor and get a clean bill of health before getting intimate again. With those ground rules in place, we officially opened up our marriage. Soon, my wife began scheduling dates for herself on Friday nights, which was convenient since I worked late anyway. I usually got home around 10 p.m., and she'd either be home already or walk through the door just as I arrived. She'd tell me about her date, where they went, what they ate, and if they had any interesting conversations. Then, she'd turn her attention to me, and we'd spend the rest of the evening together. These were just dates with other people, though. No intimacy involved. In a way, it seemed like the setup was working out. Meanwhile, I decided to give it a try too. During that first year, I went on 3 dates myself, but each one followed a similar pattern. At first, things seemed to go well, and we'd chat about various topics like our jobs, favorite movies, and hobbies. However, once they found out that I was married, their attitudes changed completely. They'd politely say that being involved with a married man wasn't what they were looking for, and that was that. While it was nice to meet them, it became clear that my situation was a deal breaker. After my 3rd date, I decided to quit the whole dating scene altogether. It didn't seem worth the effort if everyone would just walk away after learning the truth. Throughout that first year, the open marriage seemed to be working for my wife, but for me it felt more like an experiment that hadn't quite gone as planned. Although my dates didn't lead anywhere, I was just glad that she was happy and that we'd managed to maintain our relationship. But deep down, I couldn't help but wonder how long this arrangement would actually last, and whether it would ultimately bring us closer or drive us further apart. After about a year of opening up our marriage, things started to change. One Friday night, she didn't come home until around 3 a.m., and when she finally walked in, she joked that she was too sore and tired for anything. I noticed some hickeys on her chest and thighs, and I felt hurt and upset. On Monday or Tuesday, I'm not exactly sure which day, she tried to get intimate with me, but I reminded her of our 3rd rule, no touching each other for 30 days and a doctor's visit after being with someone else. She looked at me and asked, "Are you serious?" I replied, "Yes, deadly serious." This pattern became our new normal. She'd go out with her bad boy on Friday nights, have her fun, and then spend the rest of the week trying to convince me to change the 3rd rule. But to me, it felt like she'd put me on the shelf, only coming back to me when she needed something. I began avoiding her, working more, staying out of the house, or even just walking around the neighborhood for some peace and quiet. I also started exercising and became much more physically active, eventually losing some weight. She was so wrapped up in the excitement of her new relationship that she didn't notice and assumed I was just out doing my own thing. After 5 months of this routine, I couldn't see any reason to stay in the marriage anymore. I realized I was selling my own happiness just so she could be happy, and I was running out of things to give. Up until this point, she hadn't technically broken any of our boundaries, but whenever I suggested she step back from seeing him, she said I was overreacting and blowing things out of proportion. To her, it was just some harmless fun, one night a week. When our 4th wedding anniversary rolled around, I took the day off work, cleaned the house, and made her a nice dinner to celebrate. But when she got home from work around 4, she hopped in the shower, dressed up, and told me she was heading out to a bar to see a local band, and that I shouldn't wait up. I was left alone with the dinner I'd made, feeling like my marriage was slipping away. She had completely forgotten about our anniversary, and it left me devastated. The next morning, I woke up at 9 a.m. to find she still hadn't come home. She had broken boundary number 2, no sleeping over. I sent her a simple text. You have broken our boundary of no sleeping over. I am done. By 11:30 a.m., she started calling me, saying she had just closed her eyes for a second and accidentally fell asleep. I'm so sorry, she said. It will never happen again. My refusal to even discuss it seemed to snap her out of her fog. Later, she showed up at my workplace just before opening hours, causing a scene in front of my entire team and the owners. I managed to calm her down and she eventually left. I promised we'd talk on Sunday. When I got home that Saturday night, she tried to be intimate with me again, but I reminded her of rule number 3. She then told me she wouldn't be seeing the other guy anymore and wanted to close our marriage so we could reconnect. She explained that when she woke up and read my text, he made fun of her, which made her realize how much of a jerk he was. She said she freaked out and decided she wanted to be with me instead. Over the next few days, she tried every single day to be intimate with me, but it didn't work. I had no desire to be with her, and she felt like nothing more than a roommate to me. Eventually, the 30-day period passed, and she went to the doctor to get checked out. She was clear of any diseases, but she was pregnant. She came home excited, with a big smile, and told me, "We're pregnant." I didn't know what to say. I was stunned and confused. Her excitement seemed so out of touch with what had been happening between us, and I couldn't help but wonder where her mind was. I looked at her and said, "Good. I hope you two will be happy together." She stood there confused for a few moments before starting to cry. A few days later, she texted the guy to tell him about the pregnancy, and his response was, "Wow, sucks to be you. You might want to pass it off as your husband's. Laters." Soon after that, I filed for divorce. She started doing anything and everything she could to change my mind. She promised the moon, begged, and pleaded for another chance to fix our relationship. I remained polite but firm, not interested in reconsidering. Unfortunately, I was stuck living with her for a while because our lease hadn't ended yet. We developed a new pattern. She would try to be intimate with me, I would refuse, and she would get upset. I'd then head out for a run to clear my head. My resentment toward her grew day by day, just like her baby bump. About 3 weeks ago, she came into my room to talk, bringing pizza for dinner. She started by talking about how being pregnant had made her extra horny, and then she tried once more to sleep with me. By then, my patience had worn thin, and I told her bluntly, "Sorry, I'm not into fat chicks. Maybe hit Tinder. Someone on there will be down for it." She left my room crying. We had our first divorce hearing, where the judge ordered us to undergo 6 weeks of marriage counseling. Our first session was a kind of meet and greet, where we were interviewed separately to share our sides of the story. I wasn't entirely sure what they hoped to accomplish, given how far things had gone downhill, but I felt like we had to go through the motions, at least for the sake of making things official. I just wanted the whole thing to be over so we could move on with our lives. Last Sunday was my birthday, and the Friday before, she asked if I would spend my birthday with her to celebrate. I politely declined, but she kept pushing the subject until I finally snapped. I told her I wasn't wasting special occasions on her anymore, not after she went out on our 4th anniversary and got pregnant with some random guy. I left her crying in the kitchen and went to work, saying I'd see her on Monday for our court-ordered counseling session. Monday morning rolled around, but she never showed up. I tried calling her, her friends, and her parents, but no one had heard from her. Finally, I learned she'd been arrested on Sunday morning for driving without insurance and reckless endangerment. Her parents were on their way to help her. I offered our house for them to stay at while I crashed on a friend's couch. My lawyer spoke to the judge and was able to expedite the process, so my divorce was finalized this past Friday. Yesterday, I helped her parents pack up some of her stuff, and today, I'm going to help them load a U-Haul they rented. She's getting out of jail tomorrow, and they plan to take her back home with them. She wants to see me, but I feel like it would just make things worse for both of us. We need to move on with our lives. The divorce is finalized, and it's time to put this chapter behind us. Now for the top of comments before reading the update. Do not sign birth certificate and ask your lawyer as to how to get out of not paying child support. You need to show DNA tests to show that you are not the father, and do not proclaim the kid as your own. Otherwise, courts might compel you to pay child support. Please check with your lawyer regarding kids born with another father during marriage. Lawyer said, I am free and clear. Just super emotional today. Been crying? Not sure for what. Just crying is good. Cleansing. All those emotions. Getting all that negativity out of your system. You're in a liminal space right now, and that can be emotional and uncomfortable. You're closing up this chapter so you can move on to the next uncomfortable is right for sure. Dealing with my former father and mother-in-law, getting her stuff packed up and in a Yuvon. Now for the updates. Update 1. My divorce was finalized a week and a day ago. Since then, I've been replaying every moment in my head, and I feel guilty for making it out the other side relatively intact, and in some ways, even better off. Meanwhile, she's still stuck in that mess, not moving on or letting go. I had to change my phone number, delete my Facebook, and stop answering calls. The only silver lining is that she's now an 8-hour drive away at her parents', so she can't just show up at my door. However, she's still finding ways to reach out, using her friends as proxies to get messages to me. I thought that once the divorce was finalized, I'd be able to start fresh and move forward with my life. But it's not that simple. She's still holding on, and it's affecting me more than I anticipated. I guess I was naive to think that a clean break would mean a fresh start without complications. Final update. Last Thursday, I took a call from my ex-wife. We hadn't spoken since our divorce was finalized, so this was the first contact we'd had in a while. We ended up talking for about 45 minutes. She had spent some time reflecting and wanted to apologize for specific things she had done in those 5 months when she put me on a shelf, as well as during the 6 months she spent trying to stop me from divorcing her. She said she needed closure and hoped that one day I would forgive her and no longer hate her. I told her that I had forgiven her and that I wanted her to have a good life, to forget all about me and to move forward. She promised to respect my no-contact rule, and I believe she will. As for me, I'm moving on with my life too. I'm even working on rebuilding my relationship with my parents, whom I haven't spoken to in 7 years. It feels good to be taking steps toward a healthier future.